Hello, welcome back. If you are joining me from a previous video or if you are subscribed, if you are new here, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I still am pinching myself that I have almost 20, I think I had 25 subscribers before I started recording this video. I think that is insane that many people are interested and want to come back for more. So thank you if you are one of those people. It feels pretty weird that I just kind of started this on a whim, and there's 25 of you that want to hang out with me, so thank you. Today, this is my third time trying to record this, so I'm gonna try to make this intro quick because we have a lot to do in this video. My name is Regan. I go by Aunt Martha on YouTube, here on YouTube, and I like all things stationery, kind of analog-ish type things. And on this channel lately, we have been diving into my fountain pen and fountain pen ink hobby. So I am going to swatch for you all of my bottled inks. At the beginning of this ink journal, which is a Hobonichi, by the way, I think it's from 2024. It was just sitting in my collection of journals, unused. At the beginning of the journal, I swatched all of my bottled inks. As you can see, I only had 14 at the beginning of the year. I now have, I think, 27. So we're going to swatch them for you today. I thought that would be a fun thing to do on the channel, is revisit what I have in my collection. I just recorded and will probably post the other video first. I go over all of the fountain pens that I have in my collection, and I'm still so new. I'm like an infant baby in the hobby of fountain pens and fountain pen inks, and so it's definitely rough and ready, and it's been a journey learning about all of this, all about fountain pens and nibs and inks and what inks go best with what nibs, and what pens I like and what inks I like, and so I'm just taking you along for the ride. So if you're interested, stick around and maybe subscribe. Today we are going to be swatching all of my bottled inks. I have them all lined up here. We're going to go in chronological order of purchase date for me. I do have little ticks here to kind of keep me lined up and in check so that it doesn't get all wonky and I run out of room on this spread. I'm going to be using my Kakamori, I think it's a stainless steel nib, and then this is the Kakamori nib holder, and this is all I'm using. I've got some jars of water up here to rinse my nib, but I'm trying to use as few tools as possible to make this as quick as possible. So let's just jump right in. The first ink that I purchased was Sailor from the Sailor Yurameku collection, and it is Emamoyo, I believe is how you pronounce this ink. This is a chroma shading ink, and I had no idea what that was when I purchased it. So it was a real shock to me when I did swatch and start writing with this, that it was not going to stay this kind of murky pond water green. I think that's, just to keep it moving, I think that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little swatch. I'm going to write the name of the ink, and then I'm going to, and the brand, and I'm going to do a little figure 8, and then we're going to just move right along because I just have, I'm just looking at all of the bottles I have to get through, and it's a lot. So this ink I don't use anymore. Well, I don't use ever. And maybe someone in the comments can explain to me what's happening, or if this is just a bad bottle of ink. This is De Atramentis Document Ink Light Gray, and you'll see pretty quickly why I don't use this and why I never did. This ink has never not feathered. Oh my goodness. On any paper I've ever tried. And it's like pouring out of this pen right now. Oops. Now I'm running out. Oh geez. It's just so inconsistent. I literally dipped the nib like the tiniest bit and then got all that ink. I just don't like how it performs. You can already see. And I mean, I know that a lot of ink went down here. And honestly, you can only really see the feathering down here. Okay, hang on. Let me get... There we go. You can really only see the feathering like right in here and over here. But on every other paper, let me just show you. I am taking my inspiration for these from Karina Loves to Plan here on YouTube. And let me just show you what this ink does on most paper. It just bleeds right through. It doesn't sit on the page at all. And it's just so... I'm just not happy with how it performs. I don't know why right now it's like kind of looking okay. But on every other paper, let me show you what I mean in... And this is plotter paper. These pages are from Plotter. I don't know if you can see that. It just looks so grainy and feathery-ish, and it just, the paper just sucks it up so quickly and it doesn't like sit on the paper. I don't know. Anyway, I feel like I'm trying to explain why I don't use this ink, and I don't really need to do that, but I don't know if anybody else has ever had that problem with this ink or with another document ink from De Atramentis. I actually just purchased a bunch of, well, not a bunch, like 4 samples of document ink from De Atramentis, and they perform fine. They perform great. So I think it's just the bottle, but just not happy with that. Anyway, moving on. Another Sailor, Yurameku, which I still at this point didn't realize the chromo shading effects. Kitsune Biore, maybe, I think is how I've heard people pronounce it. This ink goes down in a color that I love, and then it dries to like this mauve-y purple, which I still like. Just, it was a big shock when I like swatched this and wrote with it, and it went down one way and dried another. I just did not know what was happening, and I didn't understand. I didn't know enough about inks to know that it was supposed to do that. It was meant to do that. Next we have Sailor Manyo Kuri, which I hear a lot of people talk about Kitsune Biore, and I also hear a lot of people talk about Manyo Kuri, so I'm glad I have a bottle of this. I just don't reach for it that often. I'm not really sure why. But maybe after swatching it today I will, because I do think it's a really pretty mauve-y pinky purple ink. And I do enjoy it. And I have a huge, 50 milliliters. Will I ever get through this? I don't know. Probably not. Next, I purchased a pigment ink, also not knowing what that was when I was starting out my journey. I just saw the color online and I really liked it. I am a little nervous to ink this in a pen because, I mean, it just looks so pigmented for lack of another term. And I do really like, it's a very wet ink and I do like the color. I guess I'm just a little nervous. I did ink it up in, let me finish this first. I did ink it up in my TWSBI Eco Cafe. And I don't know if you'll be able to tell on camera, but you know, the barrels of the Ecos are clear. I don't know if you can see that, but down here it's kind of stained, and like I have tried so hard to clean this out, but it maybe if I put it up against the white paper, you'll be able to see. I really am. Recording these videos today has made me realize that I really need to improve my setup a little bit. I have a light bar up here, like above my phone, and I can't figure out how to adjust them without like breaking the stand that they're holding. Maybe actually, I'm sorry. I know this is like so, I don't know, unprofessional to do it this way, but I just had an idea. Whoops. Okay, if you're new here, you may not know, but this is like my little imperfect corner of the internet where we just are who we are and we accept ourselves. I think that's a little bit better. I don't know if you can tell, but it just looks very discolored right here in the middle, and there's no ink in this right now. This has been completely thoroughly cleaned out. So I'm just a little nervous about this staining other pens that I try to put it in. Moving on, but I do really like that color. I love Helen from the Coffee Monster Co., so I really wanted to snatch up the Forgotten Iced Coffee ink. I wasn't able to get the collaboration inks that she did with Robert Oster like maybe 2 years ago now, and I did not have enough money or enough knowledge about fountain pens to want to purchase the fountain pen that came with this collection, but and I just couldn't spend that much at this point. When I bought this, I was spending like $20 on fountain pens, so I could not justify buying a fountain pen for, you know, a little under $200 without the custom nib, if I didn't know if I was gonna even enjoy fountain pens or not. I do now, but I don't know. I don't feel like I really missed out. I'm sure Helen will probably do another collaboration anyways down the line, so I'll be able to snag one then. I'm sorry, there's a little shelf on my desk right here. So there's like this main level and then there's a shelf right here. And I'm trying not to get that in the frame, but I also am trying to let this light come down, which it's still blocking. The phone is still blocking the light bar, but I'm going to lightly promise that I will have a better setup for my next video. Forgotten iced coffee. And this one is so interesting too, because it goes down, and I might have let this may have been exposed to light or warm temperatures, because the way that I see this looks like a green in here. To me, that looks green. I don't know if you can see that. And other people's, it almost looks like it has brown tones, and it kind of does. But this looks more green than what I've seen other people swatch online, which I'm happy with because I love green. I guess I'm just saying that so that you know that this may not be its accurate color because it may have been exposed to the elements. This, I did not show you the bottle. I apologize. This is Kaweco Smoky Gray. When I started venturing into fountain pens and fountain pen inks, I thought that I started with gel pens, and I thought that the black ink against white paper was too harsh for me. So I started looking for gray gel pens. And so when I started, and that's where I came from when I started in like dabbling into fountain pens. So when I started dabbling into fountain pen ink, I was trying to find like a perfect light gray, which, as you can see, that's kind of like the vibe that's happening here for the start. I have since now realized that I love browns and earthy tones and greens, which you'll see as we go along. But I really was just so, like, my tastes have changed so much since I started, and it's really only been a year since my first purchase was, I think, February or March of 2025. Next we have Dominant Industry November Leaves. And this is kind of getting us into the browns. It's definitely a start. And I also don't think I realized how light. Whoops. Remember, we're not perfect here. Dominant Industry. Definitely not perfect here. I didn't realize how light this would be either. And at this point, if you watch my fountain pen my state of my collection fountain pen edition, you'll see, or we went through the fact that I was only buying extra fine nibs for a while. So this ink in an extra fine nib is like very, very light. So I never really used it before, and I haven't used it in a while. I think I might ink it up. This is in another language, but this is from Tag Stationery, and I think it's it's labeled on JetPen's website, Takeda Jimuku. I think that's a terrible pronunciation. But the name of this ink is Stone Road of Guyon. But when I did more research, I realized that the maker of this ink is Tag Stationery. So Stone Road of Guyon. And they do have a couple other inks, and there's a couple that I really want to get my hands on, but they're always sold out. But I do really enjoy this. It's very much a shading ink. It's definitely high shading. Next we have Jacques Herbin Gris Noir. I do not speak French. I never have. So that is probably a terrible pronunciation. I also dropped a little bit right here, so I'm going to try to avoid that so we don't get any in the swatch. This is definitely still on my gray train. Like, I was still trying to find a good gray. But I thought, at this point, I think I was starting to think, let me try for some browns too. And this is fine. I mean, I'm glad I just have a little bottle. This one I really like, Cacao do Brazil from Jacques Herbin. It definitely dries different than it goes down. This is like, it's Saturday night for me when I'm recording this. And this is just like the perfect way to spend a Saturday night for me anymore. Next, we have Colorverse. Sagittarius, I believe, is what this stands for. It's from their Project Constellation, the second edition. Oh my gosh. I always struggle with this cap. It's always on so tight. This is also a very light ink, so I definitely think a more broad nib, like a medium broad, would work well with this. But it's a pretty dusty rose. Pink. I just don't use it that much. I also was trying to, in the beginning, after I realized that I was kind of, after this, these were 3 of my first 4 inks. After I realized that I was buying the same brand, I thought maybe let me take a break and try a bunch of different brands of ink and select the color that I liked from that brand. And so you can kind of start to see, like, these are all just, except for the Jeroboam, we're still down the road. Like the next 2, there's, you know, my first one from Diamine and my first one from Monteverde. Like you can start to see, I'm trying to like branch out and find ink brands that I enjoy writing with instead of just like sticking with the same brand. I started to get a little more adventurous, I guess you could say. This was the start of my brown ink journey, I think. This was a fun one. It definitely, like, I took this out of the bottle and swatched it for the first time, and it was definitely more orange than I was ready for or expecting, but I am so glad that I have this ink. It's just such a pretty, like, burnt orange kind of sunset color. Next, we have Monteverde Brown Sugar. I love this ink. It is so juicy. It goes down this like milk chocolate, and then it definitely dries. I don't know. I can't think of how to describe it right now, but it's still beautiful when it's wet and when it's dry, I think. Oopsie. Sorry about that. I'm a little more zoomed in than I normally am because I want to make sure that you can see what is happening here. So I'm going to try to keep an eye on that and make sure you're still in the frame. My next purchase after this, I went hard down the fountain pen sample route. I did not realize until after this, I think these 3 I purchased in the same order, Colorverse, Diamine, and Monteverde. Maybe the Jacques Herbin as well. These are all jet pens as well. All these are jet pens purchases except for Esterbrook. I think I bought it off Helen's website. I then realized that they sell samples of ink so that you can try an ink before you buy a 50 milliliter bottle. When I found that out, I felt so silly. And I hope more people on their fountain pen journey have experienced the same thing. JetPen sells a surprise ink sample, and I didn't want to be surprised. I did not realize that there are some stationery shops out there that take the bottles and they divvy it up into a bunch of samples, and then they sell the samples to you so that you can try the ink before you buy a bottle. That was revolutionary for me when I found that out. So I went for months without buying another bottle of ink. And this was the state of my collection for a good 6 months. Then at that point, I had probably collected twice the amount of samples that I had bottles. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to start buying bottles again and we'll see where we go. I have 14. I have 14 more bottles to show you. And these have been purchased intermingled with samples as well. Some of these I have tried the sample first. Some of them I have just willy-nilly bought and said, I've bought other inks from your brand. I'm really hoping and praying that I like these. And I will say all of them, I think I'm happy that I have the bottle. So a couple of these I did try the sample first, but a majority of these I just went willy-nilly and I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. My next purchase was a couple Robert Oster, Cafe Crema and Honeybee. Krista David called Cafe Crema that girl in one of her videos, and so I thought I really need to get Cafe Crema, and I am, again, so glad I have a bottle because she really is that girl. It's just such a pretty muddy brown. I'm going to just write R. Oster because I'm starting to get lazy. I spent the morning and most of the afternoon and actually some of the evening at my sister's house. She has 3 kids, and so her and her husband are outnumbered now. And the oldest just turned 5 too. We're gonna do Honeybee next. The oldest just turned 5, so she has I think he's gonna be 19 months soon, the youngest. And then we have one, she has one that turned 2 in August. The youngest turned 1 in November, and the oldest turned 5 just last month. And so they really have their hands full. And my work schedule is so flexible and is also not consistent day to day. So I'm definitely in a position to help over there. And today, the oldest is in preschool, her 2nd year of preschool. And they had a fundraiser for her school today. It was at the roller rink, which I think is so fun. This is Lennon Toolbar Coastal Village, by the way. And we're going to do LTB for Lennon Toolbar because we have 6 more Lennon Toolbar. Shocker. I like Lennon Toolbar. Or not shocker. I meant spoiler. Anyway, my brain's a bit of a jumbled mess because I spent about 8 hours over there. And I only had the one. The 2 oldest and mom and dad went to the roller rink for the fundraiser, and I was with the youngest, and he was napping for 2.5 hours too. So I really don't have anything to, my brain shouldn't be that jumbled. But, yeah, anyway, this is as good as I can get tonight. Ferris Wheel Press, Oyster Hour. I tried, this was around October, November. Oh, I think it was a Black Friday. I tried to make a Ferris Wheel Press order on their website, and they apparently do not ship to certain parts of the world during certain times of the year. We're going to write FWP for Ferris Wheel Press because of weather conditions and because during the shipping process, their ink would be exposed to the elements, i.e. the cold, for too long. So, and I had a cart full, and I ended up messaging their support department, or, you know, I sent them an email, and I said, you know, how long, like, what's this process? Like, can I ship it to a post office box versus shipping it to a house? Like, does that make a difference? And they were like, no, unfortunately, we're really sorry, but our inks, you know, they when they're exposed to the elements, there's potential for them to, you know, distort. And that's what I think happened here with my Esterbrook. I left it out in the sun, like up on my shelf, and I have a window over here, and I left it on the shelf, and I think it, you know, just sat in the sun for too long, and so it changed color a little bit. So they were like, we'll send you a coupon when springtime rolls around, and you can still get that same discount, and you can place an order then. So I was really bummed because I heard a lot about Ferris Wheel Press inks going out of stock, and I think a lot of their inks, if not all, are limited edition. And I was just so scared that I wasn't going to be able to get my hands on Oyster Hour. And I heard so many people talking about it, and I do love it, and I'm glad I have a bottle of it, but I ended up just going on Amazon and purchasing it off Amazon, which I don't regret it, but I'm trying to stay off Amazon, especially for my stationery purchases, because I want to support smaller stationery shops, and if I have the ability to do so, I would rather do that, or just buy directly from the ink supplier or the ink maker. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. I'm too tired for that. Okay, Tono and Limbs. I am amazed at how many inks they have and how many how wide their selection is. This is from the baby color line, Wasanban, I think is how you pronounce that. I am struggling with some of these lids. What I've done for storing my inks, I have taken a sample amount of this ink out of the bottle and placed it, let's see here. So this is a sample vial of this ink, and I've just made a label for it and placed it with all my other samples, and I've done that with all of my bottles so that I don't have to have all of my bottles like where I keep all my inks, because right now I'm a little limited on space. And when I'm sitting here and inking up pens or journaling or whatever, I won't ever need more than like 4 or 5 milliliters, which is what is in those sample vials. And so I don't know if anybody else has done that before or does that with their ink, but I am very happy that I decided to do that, especially too because it's right next to a window, and it has gotten really cold. So where I'm keeping my samples versus where I'm keeping my bottles, which they're in a box and they're covered and they're secure and they won't get damaged, and they are, you know, around 68 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So I know that they are safe. and safe from the elements, you know, and safe from breakage and safe from little hands that come into my room and when they're visiting and are exploring. And so I'm super happy that I decided to do that. So now I just have samples and ink bottles stored together, but I have a little sample of my ink bottle, you know, intermingled with my samples, if that makes sense. That way I can have access to all my inks and I don't have to try to figure out, you know, oh, where is this one at? Where is that one at? You can start to kind of see a trend. I'm kind of starting to go for lighter inks at this time. Where I'm at right now, and you'll see this towards the end, I'm really loving these like darker Julia from Julia Here on YouTube. She calls them dark and sexy vibes. I'm sorry, this is a Nagasawa ink from the Onomatope collection. I think it's onomatopoeia in a different language, is what that is referring to. This is Fuku. And this is kind of the start of the like dark and sexy vibes. And I am not a sexy person, I would say. I'm very clumsy and I'm more quirky than sexy. But I do love the dark, luxurious, like rich kind of vibes. The next three I bought together, they're from the same collection from Lennon Toolbar. I actually unboxed them in a different video on my channel. This is from the Guardian Beasts collection, volume 2 or collection 2. Feng Shiye is like kind of a browny, mauvey purple. Shishi is a little bit of like a dusty green, and then Bixie is this kind of like dusty blue color. So I'm just gonna do these one right after the other real quick, and they kind of give off these vibes, like kind of a little more light, airy Lennon Toolbar. But I do really like them. And I don't know what it is about Lennon Toolbar's bottles, but I'm so drawn to the aesthetic of the bottle for some reason. Obviously, Ferris Wheel Press's packaging is elite. It is top notch, top drawer for sure. But I don't know, I really like the kind of rustic, like almost like a potion. I don't know if that's accurate. I'm not a very witchy vibes kind of girly, but all right, we're starting to get a little more rough around the edges here towards the end. I can definitely tell I'm getting a little more tired. I recorded another video before I started on this video, and after a day of running after 3 young ones, I think I'm getting starting to catch up to me. I also could be hungry. I have not had dinner yet. Sorry, I forgot the Lennon Toolbar here and here. So that's what that, oops, that's what that LTB is for. Lennon Toolbar. Yeah, we're definitely getting a little rustic. All right, this is my first and only actually bottle of shimmer. I keep doing this like I'm recording, like I'm in the frame, and I'm not. This is my first bottle of shimmer ink. It was on sale from, I can't remember if it was Goulet Pens or that I purchased this from, or I can't remember. I was definitely not expecting such a tiny bottle, which is okay with me. I mean, I know that I'm paying for pretty packaging when I buy a Ferris Wheel Press ink, but it was on sale, and I really have been drawn towards gold shimmer lately, or champagne shimmer, and not silver shimmer. And this was a green, which I love green inks, and it was also a gold shimmer. And so since it was on sale, I thought I would just go for it. And it was my first bottle of shimmer ink as well. This is, I guess this is 20 milliliters. Which is, oh, it's a little smaller than the 30. These are 30 milliliters. It just looks like such a baby bottle, but I mean, that is a decent amount of ink, so I don't know what I'm talking about. The next three I purchased together, and I kind of made a hasty purchase because sesame oil came back in stock from Yoseka, so I just ordered a couple more while I was at it for free shipping. This is kind of what I'm talking about with like the dark kind of luxurious vibes. Like this raisin color is really, really gorgeous. We'll start with sesame oil. As you can see, I'm definitely leaning, like I have a tendency for Lennon Toolbar lately. I do really love just like the muted tones of their inks, and so far I like how they perform in my pens too. You know, it's at this point in my pen and ink journey, it's definitely just as much about how the ink looks as it is about how it performs in my pen, which back when we were over here, it was all about what does the ink look like and not how does the ink feel when I write with my pen, write with it in my pen. So now we're kind of getting more towards the experience as well as the aesthetic, at least for my journey with inks we are. Next we have dried guava, another good green. And I'm starting to realize that I don't have very many green ink bottles, at least not as much as I do brown. I have a lot more brown ink bottles, which I'm not surprised about. Once I came, like, you know, once I started to venture into like cacao and sepia, I was like, oh wait, I think I do like the brown better than I like the gray cool tones, you know? Which I still have a few cool tones in here, but I definitely am really drawn towards those like dusty, like dirty colors. Like this is just that dirtiness of Cafe Crema's. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. I do feel like Robert Oster has a muddy line, and it's like Muddy Bucket and Muddy Sands and Muddy River, I think, or I don't know. I don't think that's accurate, the last one I just said, but I like every color of that muddy line that I've seen so far anyway. This is Raisin. We are so close to the end, and this is like, I'm starting to get back into those like dark kind of deeper browns. I have this in an Esterbrook pen with a Yovo nib. It's a mini stub, which is one of their specialty grinds, I believe. I believe it's, from what I could find online, I believe the mini stub is by Kirk Spear, of Pen Realm. But please, if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. I did this in the last video. I waited till the very end to ask you guys to share some things with me in the comments. Like I've been getting a little bit more a few more comments on my videos lately, and I just love getting to interact with you guys in the comments, because we can have almost like a back and forth conversation per se in the comments, whereas like I'm just sitting here talking to my camera right now. And so to hear like your feedback or like your hobbies or what you're interested in, it's almost like we get to have a conversation, because then I can reply back to your comments in the comments. Anyway, I would love to know, what are your favorite inks, color and brand, and what is your like ride or die ink that if you just don't know what to pick, or you want a reliable ink and you don't want, you know, something that you're unsure of or you're not sure how it's going to perform, what is that ink for you? Like, what is that girl for you? Because Cafe Creme is definitely up there for me. I think there are a few that I like the colors better. Right now, it's this one, Goose Poupon from Ferris Wheel Press. I got this bottle on Mercari. I logged on to Mercari. I opened the app. I saw this. It was like there were 6 things for sale in the top of my box that I could, like the top of my home feed that I could see. And I saw Ferris Wheel Press and I clicked on it and I saw Goose Poupon, and I didn't even look at the price. I think it was only like $5 or $8 more than what a normal 38 milliliter bottle is of Ferris Wheel Press. I didn't even look. I saw Goose Poupon and I jumped on it because of this kind of the same reason I bought Ferris Wheel Press on Amazon, because I know that when they go out of stock, they don't come back. And, you know, then it's like, it would be so hard to find anything more than a sample or to get it in an ink swap with someone. So I literally, within like 2 minutes of seeing that on my feed, it was already purchased because I did not want to miss out. So right now, this is that girl for me. But I would be so interested to know, what is that girl for you in your ink collection currently? And I do recognize that that could also change in the future too, because for me right now in this moment, I'm really loving this in my Kaweco Sport. But, you know, last week I was loving Cafe Crema in my Esterbrook with the scribe nib. So I think it's like a day-to-day thing for me, what my favorite is and what I'm liking. So, I'm going to try this pause feature on my video on my phone, and I'm going to let all these dry, and then I'm going to come back, because I do think, actually, they're almost all dry. I think we're just going to move along. So I'm just going to go slowly through these. I'm really hoping that the light difference is not too distracting. You can definitely see, whoops, you can definitely see my interests and what I'm going for shift as we get down and closer to the end. Wow, this looks so different on camera than it does in real life. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out a little so you can see the whole thing. Yep, you can definitely see my preferences shift as we go, you know, chronologically down the page. And you can start to see, like, you know, these muted kind of murky tones, whereas before, and they are a little bit on the warmer side, I think, than, you know, what I was going for here at the beginning. Definitely lots of shading inks, that's for sure. Okay, yeah, let me know in the comments what is your favorite ink right now, and I'd love to just keep the conversation going in the comments. And thanks for hanging out with me again. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.